Hey guys, Shar Pittman here, host of Woman of Purpose podcast. Thank you for joining us. This is amazing. I have some amazing guests with me today, really good friends, really new friends, and it just worked out. They were all here on the same day to be able to do this. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves, and we're going to start with Sherilyn.
Hi, I am Sherilyn Robateau, and I'm currently living in Puerto Rico. I'm from Belize. Had the pleasure of meeting all these ladies over the past couple of years. God really brought us together for purpose, and so we're just privileged and honored to be here right now.
Gretchen.
Hi, I'm Gretchen Smith, and I live in North Carolina, originally from Indiana. And I'm so honored to be here, and I have met, starting with one, and God keeps adding all these beautiful ladies into my life. So I'm very blessed.
I'm Melissa Walczak, and I am from Mondovi, Wisconsin, and I had the privilege of meeting Pastor Shar at a women's event a couple years ago that they had at World Harvest, and we've been connected ever since.
Yeah, so good. Thank you guys for being here. We just got off of a silent retreat, which was very different for me, but it was probably the most impactful time in my life. And so Melissa had invited me, like, I don't know how many times, probably 100 times. And I thought that she was like crazy. I'm thinking, what do you mean? You go and you don't talk, you know? And but it really was. It was very, very impactful. And so, which is what brought you guys here to Rice Lake and able to do this podcast together. So the topic we're going to talk about, and I'm really excited to hear you guys, your hearts on it, is embracing and growing in our true identity. And in a culture right now especially, identity is something that's being attacked, and I think especially with women, because women identify as moms, we identify as wives, we identify as daughters, or as a coach, or as a Mary Kay consultant, or, you know, we identify by what we do and not by who we really are. And I think that that is what gets women in a place of maybe depression, trying to figure out, why do I exist? Is this all life is? And so I know a little bit of you guys' story, and I thought that this would really, really be a great topic to just discuss on what that would look like, you know, and especially your guys' journey in identity and how you came into your true identity and things like that. So what is your opinion, Sherilyn, on society today and its attack really on identity for women? How have you seen that with ladies that you work with, because you also work with women?
I think that if I look at my own life to start with, right? I mean, that's where we have to start at the beginning, is you. That the questions that I kept asking myself at this stage in my life, maybe like in the last 5 years, they're centered around those things that you said, like, you know, the career, the ministry, the activities. And I actually, you know, looked at other people, and especially people in my own family, and saw where they have excelled in different professions and stuff like that. And I was asking God, well, who I am. But when I was asking God who I was really asking him, what's my title? Like, am I a doctor? Am I a teacher? Am I this? And I'm telling you, for about a year at least, every time I asked the question, there was only one answer I got. And the answer was daughter first. What do you call me? Daughter. What's my title? Daughter. Yeah. And so I think that that's what started for me, the search. But then as I looked at it, I realized that it went all the way back. And so I know we're going to get into it a little bit later. That went all the way back into childhood, where that question is there, that insecurity, that areas that are not clear. And so we pursue that question in our heart in so many different ways. I think that in this, maybe this century per se, it is a little bit more emphasized or just being blaring before us as women, something that has been there all our lives, basically. But it's blaring even more just because of the nature of our society. Because we have the screens, because we have the phone, because we have access to information that is just bombarding us from all the different direction, that what has been there all the while is accelerated. It's enlarged, it's magnified, but it's been there all the while. There's also, of course, as spiritual people, we know that there's a strategic work, that the enemy is very strategic. Just like we think that we can be with the Word of God and the kingdom of God, the enemy is also strategic. And so all of these things are converging together in his plan as well. He has a plan, just as the Lord has a plan. And so the women's movement that you see out in the world is really loud. And so because it's loud, the screens, the TV, the movies, the radio, all of it just contributes to that loudness. And so if it's loud, what the world is saying, for us, we need to see the importance of speaking a better song, a voice that will quiet that noise for everybody else, including us. I could just imagine the people out there who don't have, or they're not able at this point to hear God's voice guiding, speaking, that loudness of the world's perspective, the world's ideas. It's overwhelming. But we get the opportunity to hear God's voice, and just so in that regards, I feel like the objective for us is just, when I talk about women or talk to women, is just to help them draw to God's voice instead, draw to that clearer voice of who you are, because the noise is loud.
It is loud, and I think that you guys would all agree that there's voices everywhere trying to tell women who we are and who we should be, from being, we should be weak, and we should be strong.
We should be strong.
It's like, and if we don't agree with the way that the world tells women we should be, then they become haters. But I think learning as women, especially women that are, believe that there is a God and believe that Jesus really does, exist in our lives, that there really is a greater way. And that's really the only thing that can empower women, is that. And the only way to really, really know who we truly are is found in our very Creator. That's right. It's like, Psalm 139 is probably the best, I believe, psalm in the Bible, because it describes humans. It describes all of us. And I think, you nailed it, Sherilyn, when you said how, the importance of knowing who you are, but the world wants to identify us and wants to, everything's been there all along. Being at the silent retreat, not having any social media, not having
None of that input.
You had
None
to
of
give
that
out,
noise.
right, you had to give away your phone, you had to turn off everything. There was no TVs in the room, there was no TVs anywhere, there was no music, there was nothing. I mean, silence. And silence can be loud for a minute, but I tell you, when in that time for me, listening to really who I was, it's incredible, because God was speaking to me who I was, and I didn't have all of the stuff on the outside. And he said, I'm going to show you a greater revelation or unveiling of your identity that you've never seen before. Right. And I think that is the word for women today, is that He, my Creator, the one that fashioned and formed me in the womb, He wants to speak to us and tell us who we are. And I think that before women you cannot find who you truly are in the magazines. And you can't find who you truly are. And even, you guys all do.
Not your life, well, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was saying not even in your life experience.
Exactly.
We were having this conversation in the car coming, is that the real you, the original and the true authentic you, I picture it like this, is the one God had in His hand, designed, create in His hand, before you were in your mother's womb.
Yeah.
And so even the one, I mean, I've talked to women who says, oh, this is who I am. I am like this. This is my personality. Whatever it is, this is just how I am. I'm not going to change. But that who you are, that you are seeing in the mirror, is really what life has formed you to be.
Exactly.
It doesn't even have to be what you're seeing from the magazines or TV or something. Your upbringing formed you to be this person.
Correct.
There might be some good things in there, but the original design, only God sees it. Mm-hmm. And, I was telling the ladies, I moved to Puerto Rico 10 years ago from Belize. And the night when we were having, like a farewell party for me and my family as we were leaving, one sister pulled me aside, and she's an intercessor, and we have a good relationship. And she said to me, God is taking you on a journey to discover a Sherilyn you have never seen before. You don't know her. You don't know her because it's the original you, the one that only he knows. And so that's the concept that has been in my heart for the last 10 years.
Wow.
There's a me that I don't know.
That's really good, because sometimes, like you said, we were formed in the hands of our Creator, but we're fashioned, I should say, we're fashioned.
Then deposited into our mother's womb.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. We were fashioned in His hands, put into our mother's womb, but then we were formed and marked by our upbringing, by the people in our lives when we were, as a kid. I believe sometimes who we become is never who we truly were supposed to become. Right. But because we were told who we should be and who we shouldn't be, then you kind of do that. I was told that I was mean. My sisters used to always tell me that. I hope you guys aren't listening, but if you are, shame on you. No, I'm kidding. I forgive you. But, they told me who I was. You were always mean, and you always did this, and all of these things. And so even I just, you become what you're told. And so then and then that knowing who you are, believing who you are from what is told to you, then how you respond to life is from that.
It's what you believe you are.
It's what you believe you are, which is, we had an episode last season 1 on childhood trauma, and that was the most listened to episode, which tells me that women have been marked by childhood trauma. And because things aren't talked about, or they're talked about in an extreme where it's like, it's all about you, it gets, yeah, exactly. And so this is so good because you guys have all experienced what it was like being marked as a child, not at a fault of a parent. I'm a parent, and I know I didn't do it right either, and I wish I could undo things, but it happened that way. But how you guys came out of that and realized that, wait a minute, that's not who I am. That's not who I want to be. And that's a key. Mm-hmm. You have to not want to be a certain way, and put the work into becoming and allowing your Creator to start speaking to you to help you become the woman of God that you were destined to be before the foundations of the world. And I think all of us have probably dealt with that.
And that you're even worthy to be that person.
Mm-hmm.
I felt so not enough. That was my whole life. Not enough, not enough. I wasn't like my sister. I wasn't like my brother. So I was that middle child that was just never enough. And
middle child, that should be a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, that's a whole podcast all by itself. And I was never, even at the silent retreat, the one thing that I found out about my Abba Father is that He's patient with me.
Yeah.
And I felt like my whole life that my mom or my family, because I need to process things and I move slower, that I was never moving fast enough. And so when I realized this kind of like, God's been showing me how He's patient with me, gives me confidence. Mm-hmm. It gives me this new thing like, oh, I am making the right decision. Oh, I do understand. And that was a deeper revelation. It was a few years ago back whenever I was asked to speak at a women's conference, and God took me all the way back to Adam and Eve. And the first thing He said to me was, "Who is Eve?" And I said, "Well, yeah, she was his wife, and she was the mother of all, He goes, "Oh, no. I put Adam to sleep and I drew her out, and the Bible doesn't speak how long he spent with Eve. He goes, she was mine first.
Yeah.
She was mine first. She was my daughter. She was mine, and then I gave her to Adam. And then she became a mother. And with me being a mom of 10, my whole identity, yes, I did say 10, my whole identity was wrapped up in being a mother. And when they did something wrong, and when you have grown children, when they do something, then it was a direct reflection of me, how bad I was.
Yeah. Isn't that something?
And then I portrayed that back on them. Let me control, because if they act up, then people are going to think bad of me. And this control and struggle has just grew and grew to a person that I did not like.
All because your identity was in being a mom.
Yeah,
And if my identity is not in being a mom, then I'm not going to take the successes or failures of my children
right,
because that's not who I am.
right.
You know, and so that's why it's so important that we understand as women and help empower these women that we're not what we do. I tell women all the time, you're not, okay, you're a mom. Your identity's not a mom, your identity's not a wife. That is a duty.
It's a role.
Right.
It's
a
one of the
role.
roles that you play.
The role that women get to do is I get to be a mom.
Right.
I get to carry children. I get to be a mom. I get to be a wife, but that's not who I am. If everything was taken away from me in that, then it's not going to destroy me because that's not where I place my identity. And the world places identity. If you ever meet anybody for the first time, what do you say? You know,
What
hey,
do you
what's
do?
your name? What do you do? What do you do? And it's just like then that becomes then that whole thing of where, like, that's what you're interested in is what you do. And we never really get, and that's where I think relationships even don't ever get deep is because we only stay on the do's. So it's like, what do you do? But who are you? Who is Melissa? And I love the journey that God has got me on with you guys is this whole journey of allowing women into my life. Because for some women, that's a hard thing to do, to be vulnerable, to be real and authentic. Because for women, it is if we're not alike, then it's kind of like and so.
Or if you're too much alike, then it's competition.
Then it's competition, right? Yeah.
There's a whole host of stigmas and ideologies out there regarding women. I mean, that kind of like makes you want to stand off relationship with other women. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really true. I deal with a lot of women, and I know as well as you guys. And one of the things I feel like I'm always trying to empower these women is not comparing, and not looking at somebody else as better than or less than, or any of those things. And a lot of times, for me, what I did because I didn't graduate college, and I did 1 year, and so for women that are educated, I always felt less than because they were educated, and I didn't feel like smart enough. And so then I convinced myself that I'm not smart enough to go to school. You know what I mean? And we sometimes, it's not even voices from the world. A lot of the biggest enemy of women is our own voices. And I've got an episode on that too about self-talk, the importance of self-talk. How do we talk to ourselves? Right. And I think that is really a big thing for women is how do we, what's our communication with ourselves? And how do we see ourselves? How many times do we say to ourselves, well, that was stupid. I can't believe you're so stupid. What'd you do that for? That was really dumb. I don't know if you guys do that, but I work on not doing that. But it is true. And I think that what we want to give these women today is hopefully to be able to empower them to really see that who our parents or family or growing up or the world or even ourselves maybe have said that we are, that has positioned us in a place that is not where we should be. Because like I said earlier, is how I see myself is how I'm going to respond to situations. So if I see myself as weak, I'm not going to respond. I'm just going to be that quiet, meek person that never really says anything or has a voice because maybe that's what I was told. Women don't have a voice or shouldn't have a voice or, anything like that. But what do you think, Melissa?
I think it's all great. When you were talking about roles, as being a registered nurse for, 30 some years, that was because of the difficulty of getting to that position, which we'll talk later, I think, in another episode. It was truly what I thought was my identity. And I did feel that power above other, like when people would ask, what do you do? Well, I'm a registered nurse. And it's like, and of course I was a mom and all these other things, but it was definitely something that the Lord had to peel off of me and take me actually even out of corporate nursing. When I found that my identity was in Christ, I kept falling back, like going back to that. And it was so powerful and amazing when it was like I walked out the door giving up all of my benefits, insurance, everything that I knew,
The money.
to release it and say, I trust you, God. My identity is in you.
Yeah.
My identity is in Christ. And it has changed my life.
Yeah.
And I was taken out for 5 years to be able to come back and just do some stuff to bless others with and I think I do nursing almost every day, but in a
Sure,
different form.
different way.
Yeah, but it's not my identity anymore.
It's really powerful how you were striving to get a position so that you would be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And how many of us do that? It's like, if I could just be a nurse, if I could just be a mom, if I could just be the president of a big company, if I could just, then I'm going to be okay. Like, that's where we find our value is in those things. And so I'm really excited to continue this conversation in the next episode. So anyways, thank you for joining us on the first episode of season 2 of Women of Purpose. And if you'd like to check out our website at womenofpurpose.net or email at contact@womenofpurpose.net, or catch us on, I guess we're on TikTok, and I guess we're on Instagram and all of those social medias. So anyways, check us out on there. So thank you for joining.